I think in general it's good. And I think that it is extraordinarily needed today. Um, for instance, maybe this is pie in the sky for me, but to get the younger generation to understand even what a deficit is, to understand what it means when you're running $2.1 trillion deficits, to understand how much tax burden is going to fall on them because Janet Yellen didn't term out our debt in longer terms than she did when we had 0% rates. Yeah, to understand all of these things, like we were talking about before we came on the air, to even understand how to write a check or what writing a check means, right? What is that money? I remember as a kid, my mom saying at the store, no, we can't afford that. And I remember looking at her and going, Mom, look at all the checks you have left, right? Like, write a check, you know?
Yeah.
So and I think all kids probably think like that. And what's interesting, you bring this up. Our good friend Dory Monson and I used to talk about all the time. As soon as he retired from radio, we were going to do financial literacy classes together for families and things like that. So it's a passion of mine. I'm a firm believer if the average person really, and it's kind of what we try to do on our show to some degree. It's not so much politically aimed, obviously, but financially, trying to explain to people what these things mean, right? Like if you understand what they actually mean, if you understand what's going on, if people knew what was actually going on financially in this country, I am convinced elections would go differently,
Hmm.
right? If they understood where this money is coming from, if they right? And I don't think they do. And I think a lot of politicians don't either. So I think it's a great idea. Um, and I think it's something that's sorely needed. My only concern would be, are they going to teach financial literacy as effectively as they teach other subjects? Right.
which
So,
is which is always the concern.
right. I mean, maybe we go backwards. I don't know. At the end of the day, it's who's teaching it and what's the curriculum. But I mean, if they're going to teach it like they're teaching sex education these days, I'd say don't waste your time. But yeah, I know. I think it'd be a wonderful thing. And furthermore, I think that I know for a fact, guys like me, and I bet you a lot of other guys in the profession, I'd volunteer to go do it a couple days a month at schools. I'd go speak. I'd go talk in front of the kids. And I think it'd be, especially when you look at all the things we're spending money on,
Mhm.
like I think it'd be extremely advantageous.
Well, and I can think of two other societal benefits to it. Personal responsibility, which our young people are lacking so much these days. I mean, you see that across the board. And also empowerment. You have some of these communities where, you have politicians basically saying, oh, because of your skin color, whatever it is, you're being held down, everyone's out to get you, the system's built against you, and you have them
Yeah.
go down the wrong path in life. And it's like you can give them the personal empowerment to be able to build something for themselves, to know what it means to work hard, to save, to buy things, and to earn things. And so I think that's good. Are there any aspects of, because for instance, when I moved out to Seattle in, oh gosh, 2010. I wish I had bought a house. I wish I had saved the money to have been able to buy a house, because I would have just made money hand over fist. And so I wish in my mid 20s I'd been in a better position. Are there just some basics, or you have people who come to you, in their 30s or 40s, and like what they could have done differently in their 20s to set themselves up better?
Yeah, man. And I think a lot of them are from books that I've read or anecdotal knowledge that I've picked up along the way. But in my opinion, I think the most poignant ones are the ones that come from personal experience, right? And so one of the things, and it is especially hard in this environment, in this culture, which makes it even more valuable on a relative basis. First of all, explaining the concept to everybody that wealth by definition is relative, meaning if the richest guy in your country has $100, you're really well off if you've got 90, right? Like if you're like, well, it doesn't buy anything. You're thinking about money incorrectly, right? Money is a medium of exchange between a group of people in any given area, right? So by definition, it's relative. That's why everybody's like, just give everybody $1 million. And you go, no. Now the new poor person will have $1 million net worth, and they won't have it for very long either, right? Because they will make the same decisions that got them poor in the first place. That might sound mean, but it's the truth. So first of all, explaining them that all wealth is relative. Then once you understand that concept, right, and you understand it thoroughly, you start to realize that doing different things or doing smarter things with your money relative to other people is how you get wealthy. For instance, we, quote unquote, the kids calling it balling, right? Making a lot of money. We're balling, right? It's if we're driving Mercedes Benz. No, no, man. Go drive a 15-year-old Honda Accord that runs good, save the money, and you're balling when you can go pay cash for that Mercedes
Yeah.
Benz, right? And explaining to them, take pride. Like I tell the young kids in my family, and I still don't drive an extravagant car because cars are a money pit, and but I explained to the young kids in my family, yeah, you got to spend money to make money. What a bunch of nonsense. I built Bulwark driving a 2001 Ford Focus hatchback with 220,000 miles on it, right? And people, well, if you drive that kind of car, you're not going to get clients. Well, I can prove to you that's not the case, right? And learning to take pride in that whole, no, I don't need to go buy into what everybody else is buying in. Cash is king. My goal, like measuring my personal worth or the quality of my year and not what I purchased, but how much I put away, how much I saved, and understanding that concept that if you do that early, you can get your money to work for you as opposed to the other way around, right? But it is done. I got a whole litany of clients here that work with us that never made over 150 or $160,000 in a year and are retiring with 2.5 to $5 million. Why? Because they saved money and lived below their means. It's not rocket science, right? And now those guys can go out and we have one good month in the market in their accounts. They can take part of that 1 month gain and go out and pay cash for a brand new $80,000 car, right? That's wealth. That's balling. So getting those concepts, getting them to realize delayed gratification, right? And once they get it, it's like teaching anything else. Not everybody's going to heed the advice, but no one's teaching them these things, right? And go look at the way their parents. What is it? The average. I want to say something like the average American household that has two cars is paying something like $1,400 to $1,500 a month in car payments.
Wow.
That's
Yeah.
insanity, right? And if you're wealthy out there and you're leasing, I'm not talking about you, right? Like there are people that spend that because it's more convenient or whatever. But I'm just talking about in general, you're squirrel holing $1,500 a month on a rapidly depreciating asset, and you're paying interest on it at the same time. Like it's insane. So yeah, I think that would be incredibly valuable. And to get that message to young kids, because you watch them making these mistakes and you sit down and you show them how relatively easy it can be to a really amazing place by the time they hit 50 or 55. And, it's powerful stuff. It's not magic.
Yeah, how much of that is kind of generational? I mean, I'll say, I've got memories of the creditors calling our house on the landline, and being advised like, "Hey, don't talk to them," or to say I'm not home, And so
Yeah.
there's an element
Yeah.
where I did learn some things from that. Like I never want the creditors calling me and having to, pretend that they have the wrong number. So I mean, I think that there is how much, I guess, generationally do you see people take away when it comes to how they handle their own money?
A, a, a lot. So it either goes one way or the other. I think that, well, I kind of categorize it as three people, like three types of people. I think you have the people like me where, I mean, shoot, at the age of 6 or 7 years old, I was talking about which stock I wanted to buy. And, with I lived in a money, my dad ran a brokerage firm at the time. So, I mean, I grew up around it. And then obviously compound that with my own education and my own personal experience. And then I think that you have the people that whether they come from families that are financially sophisticated and do a good job or not, that their knowledge is completely anecdotal or completely passed down. And then I think that you have the third person that, right or wrong, pivots 180 degrees away from where their parents came from, right? But the generational side of it is that it is prescient, and it's something that I've learned as a parent, and I stress this to all parents. One of the things I've learned raising three kids is I think as a parent, we tend to underappreciate or underemphasize just the words we say, right? Not like not saying mean words to your kid when when they're in trouble. I'm not talking about verbal abuse or anything like that. But I think we underplay the importance of just expressing things, right? Having money talks with your children, right? I sit down and have money talks with my kids all the time where we'll talk about what stuff pays, or they'll ask me. I'm a bit opaque as it relates to our personal finances because I don't want my kids running around school telling you know what I mean? There's certain, but explaining them how much the car cost we bought, what a car payment is, how this works, how if we don't have payments, we can own our assets as opposed to them owning us. And having these talks all the time. And what I have seen, not just financially, but as far as behavior and character and all that kind of, my wife and I have had several instances, and I can also do an entire show on what not to do too. So just this is not me putting myself up as parent
Right.
of the year, but we've just had several of these instances where we've seen our kids do something or say something, and we kind of look at each other and go, "How did that message get through?" You know, and we'll ask them, and they'll be like, "Well, you and mom talk about it,"
Hmm.
and you're just like, "Oh." Okay, so that does matter, right? And so for all the parents out there, even grandparents, have those conversations. When it comes up, entertain it, tease it out. What do you think $100,000 is? How much do you think that car costs? What do you think it takes to buy that car, considering the average person makes this much, right? Getting them to understand these things, laying the foundations and the groundwork, because what you're really doing is you're forming their foundation of how they process that type of information whatsoever, right? And like we all know, if you've got a good foundation, it's much easier to build a good house.
Yeah. And I agree with all that. And it does really circle back to you're teaching them so much more than financial literacy. You're teaching them critical thought, independent thought. You're teaching them responsibility, self worth. So I agree with you. I love this idea of financial education being mandated in high school. And Zach, you know that the lawmakers are going to hear you having volunteered to help, right?
Yeah, but I'm pretty sure they're going to look at really quick who I talked to on the radio and stuff, and they'll see you and Todd Herman's name, and they'll probably be like, "Yes, this is not the guy we want talking to
Yeah.
our kids."
Don't
So
let them anywhere near our kids.
he
So
he Dory Monson was one of his clients. No, get him off the list, right?
yeah. No, but I'm glad we're talking about this. And as you said, Dory's been gone for a year now, but this is something he was really, really passionate about. And I think an opportunity, and there's a reason for it, right? And Dory grew up poor and he was able to really turn things around for himself. And I think that he saw the value in that. And so this is interesting. So when this bill comes together, we'll talk about it again on the show so you can go over sort of what they're saying the curriculum should be. And we could talk about whether they went the right direction.
This might be the first sensible bill I've seen come out of Washington state legislation in a good spell.
Right? Let's see. Well,
So
that means they'll kill it, right? That means it's dead on arrival.
yeah, or it's gonna have some cross DEI part of it or something like I don't know. Yeah,
Yeah,
something. They'll
exactly.
they'll figure out a way to screw it up, right?
It's like the high schools. It's like, okay, we're going to teach this class, but lock all the white students in a cupboard for the first 15 minutes and then let them out.
Yeah, we don't want to. They've got white privilege. They don't need financial education.
Yeah, no, we want to set them back a little bit. Anyway,
Yeah,
this is
probably.
see, Zach, this is why they're not going to let us in the schools.
Oh no, yeah, that's what I was saying. You won't see me on that invite list. I might get invited to the Christian school down the street or something like that, but they're not going to let me darken the door of a public school. I promise you.
That's all right. It's a thought that counts.